Hey everyone, it's John, and today we're going to continue on the BGP video series. In this video, I want to discuss route reflectors. Now, what are route reflectors? Route reflectors are effectively a measure to counteract the iBGP split horizon problem. Now, what was that? If you recall from our previous video on iBGP, you'll remember that routes learned from an iBGP peer will not be re-advertised to another iBGP peer. That was a method to prevent loops because we can't depend on AS path, because the AS path is the same within all iBGP peers, obviously. Now, the glaring problem with that is to allow for all routes to be learned, you would have to fully mesh all iBGP peers. Now, in the case of this topology here, we've got 7 routers which are all in the same AS. So the calculation to work that out would be the number of routers times the number of routers minus 1 divided by 2, sometimes known as n times n minus 1 divided by 2. So we'd have 7 routers here, so do 7 times 6 divided by 2, which is 21. We'd have to have 21 peerings just to attain a full mesh between just 7 routers. That increases exponentially. If you imagine if we had 100 routers, it'd be 100 times 99 divided by 2, or even worse yet, imagine routers in the thousands. This quickly becomes infeasible, and the reason that route reflectors and as well confederations were developed were to address this problem of scalability. So that's what we're going to address in this video, is the scalability issue within iBGP. So the first thing which I want to do is just quickly discuss this topology. We've got a router down here in AS43 peering with router 2. These two obviously are going to have an eBGP relationship because they're going from different ASs. Similarly, on the right hand side, we've got AS67 peering with router 8. This link will also have an eBGP peering, but everything within here is going to have an iBGP peering. So what I'm going to do is configure every device to peer with this central node here, and then I'm going to configure these bottom 4 to be route reflector clients and these 2 just to be non-clients. Now, you're going to see a little bit of different characteristics to how the network behaves based on the marking of client or non-client routers. Now, that's the way I've laid this out. So we're going to do a little bit of experimentation and just see what happens. From the offset, though, I will say that if you read about route reflectors, you'll read that they will reflect routes from external peers to clients and non-clients, and clients will be reflected to clients and non-clients, and non-clients will be reflected to clients but not non-clients. I've distilled that. The only thing you need to really remember here is that non-client advertisements will not be reflected to other non-clients. That's the only thing you really need to remember as a stipulation. Everything else will be reflected. So what do I mean? An external client, let's just say this router here, an external AS, was directly connected to this. It's not, but let's pretend it is, and it injects a prefix of all the 6s, 6.6.6.6. Okay, now if this was configured for route reflection, it would reflect to all its connected neighbours. So it would reflect to the clients, and it would also reflect to the non-clients. Okay. Same again, if we had this router here, which is configured to be a client, if it injected all the 3s, it would go to the route reflector, and it would reflect that route to its clients and also to the non-clients. Okay, so we've still got full reflection here. If we have a non-client, however, and we inject a route of, say, all the 7s as loopback, and it goes to the route reflector, it's still going to reflect that to all its clients. It's still going to pass it here, and to here, and to here, and to here, but it's not going to reflect it to its other non-client. So the only thing you need to remember really is that non-client advertisements going through a route reflector, the route reflector will not reflect it back to another non-client. Everything else will always be reflected. So that's that one there. What I also want to point out is that if you think about this, right, you think, okay, well, what if we have multiple route reflectors? We can't just have just one route reflector because we've got issues of redundancy. What would happen if we had multiple route reflectors? Would that not basically invalidate the whole kind of loop prevention? That are we not kind of usurping the iBGP split horizon rule, which is designed to prevent loops? If we had this route reflector connecting to a root reflector connecting to a root reflector, and they were just getting roots and reflecting them and just looping round and looping round. Well, no, because root reflectors actually inject additional path attributes called the originator ID in the cluster list, and we're going to actually see that later on in action, and that does actually prevent loop prevention. What it does is, if this router here sends a prefix to the root reflector is actually going to make a note of that and say the originator ID was whatever the BGP ID is here, say it's all the 7s for the loopback, and it's going to say this prefix was originated by this router here. So if it reflects out and it keeps getting reflected back and it gets the same prefix back, it's going to know that the originator ID is 7.7.7, which it's already received, therefore it's looping round, therefore it's not going to re-advertise and it's going to drop it. So root reflectors actually have this built-in loop prevention mechanism, which is actually very, very useful. The last thing which I want to discuss is that this is often overlooked by a lot of people, I think, is that routes will only be reflected if the root reflector considers that route to be the best route in its own BGP table. So let's just say we had, let's imagine we had another connection down here and we were learning, this router here was advertising multiple paths, multiple networks behind here which are not configured, but let's just imagine that we've got some routes here and it was not just being learned through this link, but let's imagine we had a connection here. So the root reflector would be receiving the prefixes from this network behind here from 2 points from here and to here. It would not reflect both those prefixes everywhere, it would just pick a best path and reflect that only. So because of that, we actually get some efficiency with root reflectors. With confederations, that doesn't happen actually. So root reflectors has got a bit of an advantage there in the fact that it will not just be randomly relaying and flooding out these redundant routes. It's going to pick a best path and reflect that. If the best path fails, then we're going to fail over and get the reflection of the backup. Okay, so it's quite efficient using root reflectors. So I think with that little preamble, I think we should continue on and just do some configuration. So what I will say is that if you remember from the previous iBGP video, is that very often, in fact almost always, iBGP runs on top of an IGP. It doesn't replace IGPs, and in this case we are running OSPF within AS5 for reachability between all the loopbacks, and we're going to peer between all the loopbacks. So we're going to have an eBGP peer in here, an eBGP peer in here, and I'm just going to configure iBGP with everyone with router 1 without configuring the root reflector at first, and then I'm going to change it into a root reflector and then see what happens just with that simple change. So let's kick on and do it, and we'll start by configuring the eBGP peering on this link here first. So let's kick on and do it. Okay, so if we do show IP int brief exclude the unassigned, and our address is 200.0.0.2, which means this link here is going to be 200.0.0.1. So let's peer with that, the actual physical interface. So router BGP 43, and we'll do neighbor 200.0.0.1, and it's remote AS5, and that's that. Okay, and we'll go here and we'll do enable conft router BGP5 neighbor 200.0.0.2 remote, what was that, remote 43. So we should get an eBGP peering between those two neighbors come up. There we go, that's that done, and let's do the same up here. So we'll do, just pull this down, and show IP int brief exclude unassigned, and our address is 210.0.0.2, so that means this one's going to be 210.0.0.1. so let's peer with the physical interface again. So do router BGP 67 neighbor 210.0.0.1, and remote is 5, and just repeat the same process here. 210.0.0, oh, 0.0.2, and remote was that 67, I think that was, yes, 67. So now we should establish an eBGP peering between that link as well. There we go. Okay, so now we've configured our eBGP here and our eBGP here. So let's focus on the iBGP part. Now, like I said, we've got OSPF running underneath, and we now have reachability between all of the loopbacks. Each loopback is configured as its root name, so number 7's got a loopback of 7.7.7, 8's got a loopback of 8.8.8, 5's got 5.5.5, so on and so forth, you get it. So let's go and we'll peer everyone with this central node, which is going to effectively act as the root reflector. Not at first, but we will configure that. So let's just go into router 2 and do router BGP, and we'll do neighbor all the ones, and it's remote 5 because it's in the same AS, so it's going to be iBGP, and we'll update the source is going to be loopback 0 because we're peering on our loopback of all the 2s. Let's go to router 3 and follow the same process. Enable router BGP, and we'll do all the ones, remote 5, neighbor all the ones, update, loopback 0. And like I say, this stuff is quite confusing at first, so if you're finding it hard to follow, just be easy on yourself. It was very hard for me to follow at first as well. It's just a matter of repetition. There's no secret to this stuff. At first it's very obscure, and then all of a sudden it starts to make more sense. So if you're struggling with it, just give yourself time, and like I say, I would strongly encourage you lab this, because labbing this will do a far better job than I could of helping you learn this stuff. This is just to give you a wee bit of an idea, something to follow on. So conf t god, router neighbor remote 5 neighbor under update sources loopback 0. And let's go up to number 7, and we do and number 8. Fair mashing the keypad today. Okay, so now we're at router 1. Let's just finish off all those neighbour relationships by going 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 and 8, and our iBGP neighbours should all form with router 1. So let's go in here, conf t router BGP 5 neighbour, and we'll do all the 2s first. Remote 5 neighbour all the 2s, and we'll do update source loopback 0. Okay. That's us. We're doing a show IPBGP sum. We'll see if we've actually got all those peerings. Okay, so everyone has formed a iBGP peering with router 1, but like I say, no root reflectors have been configured. So what I'm going to do is first introduce a prefix from AS43 and see what first happens. So we'll do, we've got an interface of show IP int loop 0. Oh, let's do that way. So we've got all the 6s. Let's advertise that into BGP. So router BGP 43, and we'll do network all the 6s, and the mask is a /32. So we do a show show IPBGP. We're now advertising that into BGP. So what's going to happen here? We've advertised the loopback from R6 into BGP. So it's going over the eBGP link. So R2 is going to see an eBGP learned route So it's actually going to pass it to an iBGP peer because it's going from eBGP to iBGP. So router 1 will get it no problem. So let's just check router 2's got it first. So show IPBGP, and it's received it no problem. And router 1 should also get it because it's going from eBGP to iBGP, so the iBGP split horizon rule is not in effect. Okay, all the 6s, it's received it, but like I say, router 1 has learned it from an iBGP source, so it's not going to pass it to another iBGP source, or iBGP peer rather. So none of these other ones are going to have all the 6s with their show IPBGP, it's going to be empty. And that's going to be true for all of them, just pick random ones. Show IPBGP, empty. So what can we do to fix this? Well, like I say, let's configure this as a root reflector and see what happens. So this is the only real command. First I'm going to say these bottom 4 are going to be root reflector clients, and the top 2 here are going to be non-client, so they're just going to be left alone completely. All you need to do to configure root reflectors, despite its somewhat complex theory, in practice the actual configuration is super simple, and you'll see that here. So neighbor 2.2, we want to make that a root reflector client, so it's simply to type root reflector client, that's it. It'll reset. There we go, it's reset, and that's it now, a root reflector client. That's as difficult as it is. Number 3 is the same. Number 4 is the same, and 5 is also going to be. Okay, so we've now injected this prefix from router 6. It's learned via eBGP, so router 2 is taking an eBGP peer and passed it on. Router 1 has learned it from an iBGP peer, and it is now configured for root reflection. So is it going to pass it on to all of these? Well, you would think so, but here's this point here. Roots will only be reflected if the root reflector considers the root to be the best root in its own BGP table. So let's just check it. Is it the best root? It's not actually, and there's actually a reason for that. If you remember from the last one, it's not got the little arrow here which says best. You notice that? And that is because the next hop is not reachable. You remember from our last iBGP video what we did? Because eBGP injects it, iBGP will not modify any of the path attributes, so this next hop of here is still going to be injected into here. So this router is going to see this point is still the next hop. Now we could change that by changing this to the next hop self, but like the last video, we're going to just do what we did and redistribute this network here, this connected network, into OSPF, which will make it reachable from this point and 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 this point. And because of that, that route will now be valid because it's reachable. Because it is valid, it now becomes the best path, and because it's the best path, it will now be reflected to all of the clients and the non-clients. So let's just go and do that just now. Let's go and just make this reachable by redistributing this network into OSPF. So we'll just do a route map, and we'll call it map and just permit 10, and we'll do a match. We're going to match the route, or rather the interface of gigabit 01. And we'll do router OSPF 1 and redistribute the connected network on the connected interface specified in the route map called map, which is gigabit 01. And if we now go to router 1 and do a show IP routes OSPF, we'll see we've got an E2 route, which is the external route, the type 5 LSA, and there it's there. So now the 200.0.0.0 network is now available. Because of that, this next hop is now available, and because of that, this is now a best path. See that wee arrow there? It's a best path. And like I say, because it's a best path, it will now reflect it. So let's see, does router 3 suddenly have this route? Show IPBGP. Yes, it does. Does 5 have it? Also a client. Show IPBGP. It also has it. Now what about up here? This is a non-client. It's also going to have it. Because like I say, the only time a root reflector will not reflect it is when it receives a prefix from a non-client, and it will only pass it to clients and not non-clients. So I think we should go and test that out. But before that, what about this router here? Is that going to receive that route? It's went from here. iBGP has injected it. So router 2 has passed it onto an iBGP peer. This peer is now configured as a route reflector, and because this path is the best path, it is going to reflect it to all of its connected neighbours. So it's reflected it here, 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 and here. So this router has got it here. Will router 8 pass it on? Well, yes it will, because router 8 is connected to an eBGP peer. iBGP split horizon doesn't affect, so it's going to pass it on. So this is also going to have all the 6s. So let's go and check that here. Show IPBGP, and it's also got it. You see that? So what I'm going to do is we are going to inject another route into BGP, this time from a non-client. So we'll do interface loop and just call it loopback 192, and we'll do 192 and we'll make it all the 7s. Okay, so router BGP 5 network. Oh, not all this, it's 192 7.7.7, and the mask. Okay, so we do a show IP BGP. We're now injecting that into BGP. So let's see what happens. It's been injected to BGP. It's going to a route reflector. So let's see if it's in the route reflector yet. It's receiving it. And what's it going to do? It's going to reflect it to its clients, isn't it? Even though it's a non-client source, it's still going to reflect it. See that? It's still got it. So non-clients are being reflected to clients. So the clients are still getting it. Okay, show IP BGP. The only one who's not getting it is the non-client. The non-client will not see it. See that? Doesn't have the 192.7.7.7. So like I say, the only thing you need to remember is non-client advertisements, i.e. a non-client advertisement will not be reflected to other non-clients. Everything else reflects. And obviously because this is not reflecting to here, because R8 doesn't have it, by extension AS67 does not have it, so show IPBGP, it will not have it also. Okay, so if you have two non-clients, you've got to treat it like old iBGP, and they have to be meshed together. Now remember, iBGP peers often, very often, are not directly connected. They can still be have neighbourship effectively. So because we have OSPF running underneath, router 8 can ping all the 7s. So it's got connection. As long as it has reachability to this router, it can peer with it. So let's go and peer that now. So we'll do conf t and we'll do router BGP 5 and we'll do neighbor all the 7s, remote 5, neighbor all the 7s, update source loopback. And we'll do the same thing here from router 7. Like I say, that can ping router 8 because of OSPF. So if we have reachability, we can therefore form a relationship, a peering. So we'll do neighbor all the 8s, and we'll do remote and do neighbor all the 8s, update source, loopback. So now we have the adjacency with number 8. So now, even though this is a non-client and non-client, because the two non-clients are now neighbors, being manually configured as neighbors, this is suddenly going to see the 192.7.7.7. So let's see it now. Show IPBGP. We now have it, and because we now have it here, it's going to be passed along the eBGP. So this one, by extension, also has it. Show IPBGP. Here's the thing though. Remember I was talking about this cluster list and originator ID. Let's have a look at that. So what we learned we did show IPBGP in 192.7.7.7. Remember this from doing our path manipulation. It's learned it from all the 7s, and we've got these things here. Origin IGP, metric, local preference, valid, internal best path, so on and so forth. Now that's because it's learned from a directly connected neighbour or a directly not directly connected, but a direct peer, should we say. Even though it's not directly connected, they actually are paired together. This router, this router, this router, and this router all learned about that link through route reflection. Okay, that route 192.7.7.7 was reflected to it, reflected to it, reflected to it, reflected to it. So let's pick this one and see that how it looks in this table here. So show IPBGP 192, and you'll see we've actually got this additional information. You see that there? That was not in the last one. We've got the originator and the cluster list. So the cluster list is taking the route reflectors cluster ID, which is by default its router ID, all the ones, and the originator, because it learned it from this router here, the route reflector has taken a note really of the ID of the BGP speaker from which it learned the route and appended it into its BGP updates. So now, if we had more route reflectors here, and these were reflecting routes, if it came back to the route reflector and it saw that the originator ID for that prefix had the same originator ID, it would drop it, because it would know that, listen, this has been reflected multiple times back to me and we're now looping. So route reflectors do have that mechanism built in. So what I'm going to do just at the end here is let's just do our route map pair 10 match, just give us reachability here, match int gig 0 0 map pair 20 and redistribute up connected route map, and we'll put in all of the IP address. Okay, and we'll do router BGP 67 net, all this. Do show IPBGP, but injecting the 67s into BGP. Okay. So now we have that. Let's see how we do with reachability. So let's do an extended ping protocol. Target address is all the 67s. Extended commands, yes, and the source address is all the 6s. And you see that we now have reachability from router 6 right up through here. We've passed these routes successfully, and like I say, we did not have to do all those peerings of 21 different peerings for iBGP, and again that would increase exponentially as the network grew. Now what you could probably spot here is there's a glaring problem, is that everything is dependent on this one node here, and if this node happened to fail, then we would have a problem. First thing which I want to say before we do that though is with this router here, I just want to demonstrate this. See this link here? It's not directly connected, it's directly connected to the route reflector. So what I want to do is just shut this down and do gig 02, and we'll shut that down. So we don't have the direct connection. But see, as long as we have reachability to the route reflector through the IGP, route reflectors will still be getting it, even though it's not going to learn it directly from this router here. It's still directly connected, paired with the route reflector because it's got connection, and we should still have connectivity. So what I'm going to do is advertise another prefix in. We'll do this one here. Let's just do conft do show IP int brief. Yeah, so we'll do int loop 192, and we'll do 192.5.5.5, and we'll do router BGP 5 net 192.5.5.5 mask, inject any BGP. Okay, so it's been injected into BGP. The route reflector will get it. It's receiving it there. Now, like I say, this link here is shut down. So is it going to receive it? It's still receiving it, you see that? because it's still got even though it's not learning it from it's not learning it from router 3 here, it's using router 3 to get a connection to the root reflector. Because it's paired with the root reflector, it's still going to receive the routes even though this link is shut down. Okay, so if we actually do that and do it to show IPBGP 192 all the 5s, you're going to see it's learning it from 1.1.1. It's not learning it from 3.3.3.3. It was originated by number 5, okay? But it's still learning it from 1.1.1 even though it's going through router 3. So that's the difference. You've got to remember that with iBGP. So as I was saying, the glaring problem is this central node. If this gets kicked out, then we're going to have severe problems, severe limitations. So the way to get around that is using root reflector clusters. And so that's what the next video is going to be on. We're going to deal with clusters and how we can actually provide redundancy in this strategy to provide efficient BGP network mappings. So hang tight. We're going to go into the next video and we'll discuss root reflector cluster IDs and clusters in the next video. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye bye.